Fate of the Senate could be decided by another runoff in the state of Georgia. That'll happen 27 days from today after both Republican Herschel Walker and Democrat Raphael Warnock failed to reach that 50% threshold.
Plus, in Arizona, two major races still too close to call this morning as the governor's race between Katie Hobbs and Kari Lake hangs in the balance, with 30% of the vote still not counted this morning. And in the Senate race, Mark Kelly with a 5-point lead over Blake Masters. Arizona officials say 99% of the vote will be counted by Friday.
Meanwhile, in Nevada, Republican Adam Laxalt extending his lead over Catherine Cortez Masto, giving Republicans hope they will flip both the House and the Senate, which would mean red wave. It just might take a couple of days. We'll get more on that with our political experts in just a moment.
And Tropical Storm Nicole making landfall as a Category 1 hurricane along the east coast of Florida, bringing dangerous storm surge to the area. The first hurricane in November in nearly 40 years to hit the United States. We'll bring you live updates throughout the show.
But first, let's go back to those key Senate races in Arizona and Nevada. For more, let's welcome in the rest of our team this morning. Former Pennsylvania Senator and Newsmax senior political analyst Rick Santorum joining us from afar once again. Good to see you, Senator. We're also joined by former chairwoman for the Nevada State GOP and Newsmax contributor Amy Tarkanian. Also joined by former Speaker of the Oklahoma House Newsmax contributor TW Shannon. Senator, we'll begin with you. We were talking about this yesterday. We've had 24 hours to sort of digest what happened on Tuesday. I want to start in Arizona. Blake Masters is 5 points behind Democratic Senator Mark Kelly as we all wake up this morning. 70% of the vote is in. 650,000 votes still haven't been counted. Could Blake Masters make up that difference with what is left out there? And then I'll just say it, Arizona, Nevada, once again, why can't we get this done on Election Day?
On the latter point, there really is no excuse for this. I mean, they look. Part of it is that you have mail-in vote, and they take votes that come in after the election, and they have to count those. So yes, that is a lot. That's a reasonable thing to do. Whether they should do it or not, how long they should do it, that's the question. But mail-in voting does delay the outcome, so that's a big problem. Whether we should have this type of mail-in voting. I'm not a fan of it. I think we should have election days. We shouldn't have election seasons. But that's how the voters of that state, at least the legislators of that state, have wanted to go. On the actual races, Kari Lake looks like she has a very good chance of winning. Blake Masters, it's a pretty high mountain for him to climb to get that in the win column in the Senate race. So I'm again optimistic about Kari Lake, less optimistic about Blake Masters as I look at it this morning.
That would mean that the Georgia runoff with an Adam Laxalt win would make it all about Georgia once again, Amy.
Well, yes, it would. Now, unfortunately, because we do have all mail-in ballots, just like Mr. Santorum mentioned, that it does take time. Now, we are on schedule according to the way that our laws have been written for elections. We will have our provisional ballots. We will have, the weekend to cure ballots. And then next week, we should actually know better on where we are positioned. Now, currently, it shows Adam Laxalt winning. However, it's 2-1 Democrats showing up for the mail-in ballots that are currently coming in, which means in Clark, which is Las Vegas, and Washoe, which is Reno, if it continues on that path, then you're going to see it flip to where incumbent Catherine Cortez Masto will be reelected.
Rob, you brought up a good point about all eyes being on Georgia. And I think one of the things we need to be focused on for 2022 is 2022. I'm very concerned that Donald Trump may be announcing his presidency here in the next couple of weeks. And I think that would really distract from Herschel Walker's chances of winning in Georgia. So I think all Republicans should still be focused on 2022, and we should not get ahead because all eyes will be on Georgia because it's going to come down to the wire, I think, between Warnock and Walker for sure.
Yeah, Senator Santorum, TW brings up a good point. We know the President Trump's going to make an announcement on Tuesday. We have this runoff going on. Senator Ted Cruz is in Georgia tonight campaigning for Herschel Walker. If President Trump announces, what does this do for this race in Georgia?
If President Trump announces, President Trump owns whoever wins and loses in Georgia because the race will shift to be about President Trump. I'm not sure that, as we saw from this past election, when Trump is on the ballot, in tough purple, and like in Pennsylvania, when you have someone like so closely identified with President Trump and Doug Mastriano and Mehmet Oz, we lost, and we lost badly. And you saw it throughout the ballot. I mean, we got to deal with the reality here that the Trump candidates dramatically underperformed in all of these key races. And the closer you were attached to Donald Trump, the worse you did. And now we're going to see a situation where Trump is going to insert himself right in the middle of this race if he announces. I don't think he will announce. I think he understands this is devastating for him if he announces and Herschel Walker goes on to lose this race. He will own that loss. I don't think he's going to take that chance. I think he hopefully has learned the lesson that the more involved he got in races in the country Tuesday, the worse our candidates did, and maybe he needs to start rethinking about what his plan is going forward.
Well, there's also a hurricane hitting the east coast of Florida right now. And Mar-a-Lago, where he's going to make this announcement, is, of course, right on the water. So that could play a role as well. I'm going to be interested to see if we hear anything from the Trump camp over the next 2 days about that Tuesday announcement. Obviously, he had telegraphed that the announcement would come before we knew there was going to be another runoff in the state of Georgia. The only difference this time, Amy, is the runoff is going to be, it happens 27 days from today, December the 6th. When it happened 2 years ago, it happened in early January. So we got through that 2020 election, and then we had literally over 60 days to wait. And the candidates had to re-campaign for 2+ months in the state of Georgia. Much smaller window of time now, which I think is going to benefit both these candidates and keep voters, hopefully, on both sides motivated to get out there and vote. But the concern, as we saw in 2020, we don't want a repeat of Republican voters not getting out there and casting their ballot in the runoff in Georgia.
Right, and I would agree with that. And I think you're not going to change the minds of those on the left or the right that have already cast their ballot once for Warnock or Walker. They're going to have to go for those third-party voters and try to change their minds. Now, here in the state of Nevada, let's take a county like Douglas, which is actually one of the reddest, if not the reddest, in the state of Nevada. Usually they have a really high turnout, somewhere in the 70%, but they only had, I think it was roughly 55 or 56% show up. Why? Yeah. Why did they not do a better job turning out? Why was there apathy? And I think really that's what Republicans have to look at in the next go around. Yeah,
TW, Senator Santorum said election season, right? I think that perhaps, and I want to know your take, if Republicans need to, going into the next election, really think about how they are handling their messaging, because Democrats typically say that they do all of these mail-in votes. So the voting takes place well before, TW, the day of election. Do Republicans need to get on track with their messaging and make sure that Republicans perhaps are taking part in mail-in voting?
Allison, there's no question that elections are won when you have the right finance candidate and the candidate is on message and it's a quality candidate. And those are areas we've got to examine. But before we talk about the next election, again, we've got to get through 2022. 2022 is still up for grabs right now. And we need all Republicans on deck, focused on places like Arizona, certainly like Georgia, where I think we've got a really good shot. Herschel Walker was not the most ideal candidate from us from out the gate, but he really stayed on message. He really rebounded after a really tough, hard-fought election. And let's face it, Warnock has been a senator who has sided with Joe Biden 98% of the time. He is the reason the country's suffering and Georgians are suffering. We should not have this close of a race, but we do, and that's why we can't focus on 2024. We've got to be focused on 22. All eyes should be on that, not the presidential.
Senator, final thought, 20 seconds. What did we learn after the election on Tuesday? What have we learned?
Well, I think we covered a couple of them on this, which is, you just mentioned, we have to get with modern elections. In a lot of these states that are new to mail-in voting, Pennsylvania is a great example. We had a 51-point gap between Democrats and Republicans on early voting. It's really hard to make up a 51-point gap when 20% of your vote is in and you're 50 points behind. So that's the problem we have. We haven't kept up with the changes in election law. We have to do a much better job as a party. That would be going forward one of the big messages out of this election.